Ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we explore the relationship between artificial intelligence and religion. I am George, and alongside my friend Kostis, we examine artificial intelligence through scientific, philosophical, and religious perspectives, focusing on its impact on humanity, ethics, and responsibility. Let's dive in. As you know, artificial intelligence is the scientific domain which is involved in the creation of systems suitable for analyzing data, learning from them, and generating rules and algorithms to classify data, even predict new ones. AI models are better than humans in many areas, as they analyze enormous data sets simultaneously. However, AI's goal is not the replacement of humans, but the optimization of life quality. The emergence of AI raises many religious and philosophical questions about human existence. Many religions emphasize that the human soul and ethical judgment cannot be replicated by machines. At the same time, the question of responsibility arises. Who is responsible for the actions of a machine? Thus, religion, as well as philosophy, are called upon to contribute to the discussion on the limits and proper use of technology.
Now, let's take a look at the key milestones in the history of AI. First of all, the foundations of AI development were laid by Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts in 1943. These two brilliant scientists published the article, A Logical Calculus of the Ideas Immanent in Nervous Activity. In this article, they emphasized on the astonishing fact that the human brain can be emulated through logical and mathematical models. They introduced the term neural network, and they claimed that such mechanisms can perform many simple functions. The Turing test is a thought experiment that constituted a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. In this test, a machine chats with a human. A judge listens in on the conversation without knowing who is who. The machine passes the test if the judge can't tell it apart from the human. It becomes easily understood through this figure, where A has to answer if the human is B or C. 5 years afterwards, the term artificial intelligence is used for first time by John McCarthy. By definition, artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine to replicate human cognitive functions such as learning, planning, and creativity. Nowadays, most of us use chatbots for everyday tasks. Chatbots are computer programs that make conversations with humans. The first chatbot of all time, called Eliza, was developed by Joseph Weizenbaum in Mu Iota T, and its main role was to act like a psychotherapist. That's what it looked like, a common conversation with Eliza. Moving forward through the decades, we realize that strong AI models are developed that beat humans in intellectual games. After many failures, Deep Blue Engine finally beats Garry Kasparov in a series of classical matches in 1997. Similarly, 2 decades later, DeepMind develops AlphaGo engine that beats the Go world champion, Lee Sedol.
Afterwards, transformers are invented. That was a milestone in AI history as they introduced a radically novel method of information processing, the attention mechanism. In contrast with the outdated Eliza, modern large language models such as ChatGPT, thanks to transformers, understand text in depth instead of just memorizing it. So, in 2017, 8 pioneering AI researchers published a scientific paper named Attention is All You Need, highlighting the importance of the attention mechanism that they invented. Thanks to the attention mechanism, traditional chatbots got replaced by modern large language models, and the attention mechanism became the new method to process information. Have you ever wondered what large language models really are? They are basically AI systems consisting of many neural networks that are trained on huge amounts of text to understand and reproduce natural language like humans. They produce texts such as essays and poems, and in combination with other AI models create images and videos. In addition, they answer to questions of general and specialized knowledge. Finally, they write or correct code in many programming languages, and their performance depends on the size of their data and their computational power. They all work in 5 basic steps: tokenization, embedding, attention mechanism, multilayer perceptron, and unembedding. At first, these models break the text into words, parts of words, or even individual characters. They're called tokens, and they assign numerical values as shown in the image. Through this mechanism, they find similarities, such as common roots or endings, and manage unknown words by combining familiar parts, thus understanding even words they have never encountered before. The next step of the procedure is the embedding. Here, the model converts the tokens into embeddings. Each numerical value of the token is now converted into a coordinate of a vector in a multidimensional space, as shown above. So the distance between two words is determined based on the similarity of their vectors. This process to understand the words and make associations between them. For example, by calculating the distance between man and woman, the model searches at the same distance away from king until it finds the word vector queen. Then follows the attention mechanism. Here the model decides which parts of the sentence are most important in each case. It compares words and observes their context to understand them, even if they have multiple meanings. As shown above, it's like an exchange of information between the word vectors. After the attention mechanism, a multi-layer perceptron stage follows, which acts as the model's processing center. According to the first figure, there can be many attention mechanisms and MLPs placed alternately into the model to make it stronger. The process now becomes interesting. Into the multi-layer perceptron, the model poses questions about the words to sort them in many different ways through mathematical operations. As you see in the second figure, the MLP is a neural network, and when you give a word, it poses yes or no questions, and depending on the answer, it activates specific neurons. Finally, the model follows the reverse process by turning vectors into words. Its output is words and probabilities. If it is a highly deterministic model, then it will write the most expected word, whereas if it is a poetic model, it may choose some words unexpectedly. The model repeats the previous steps and reaches the unembedding stage multiple times. That's how text is generated. I think you are already familiar with ChatGPT, BERT, Lambda, Claude, and Llama. If not, you can easily search them on web. Let's continue. Fun fact. The acronym GPT from ChatGPT comes from Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which signifies a model that generates content, being trained in advance and working based on transformers. In our country, Greece, the first Greek LLM, named Meltemi, was experimentally developed in 2024 by Archimedes Research Department. 1 year later, the same organization developed Cree, also known as the Greek ChatGPT, because it has a similar structure. New York Times blames ChatGPT for plagiarism. As the lawsuit explains, Microsoft and OpenAI used our work to develop and market artificial intelligence products without the Times' permission. That's what they stated. Do the LLMs have objectivity on their discussions? First of all, ChatGPT, like other models, incorporates articles from magazines, books, newspapers, etc. into its corpus. Consequently, what they write is influenced by the text they have been given. Therefore, is it reasonable to talk about the objectivity of LLMs when they are, to some extent, biased by specific opinions and ideas? In order to increase LLMs' objectivity, are there any alternative ways to provide information to models before they are put into use? Write in the comments below.
Let me tell you about the godfather of artificial intelligence. I'm talking about Geoffrey Hinton, a great AI researcher that mainly worked in the field of deep learning. By definition, deep learning is a type of machine learning that enables computers to process information in ways similar to the human brain. Geoffrey Hinton pioneered the use of multi-layer neural networks, enabling the management of complex data and the execution of complex tasks such as driving autonomous vehicles. In 2024, along with John Hopfield, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for fundamental inventions and discoveries that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks. At this point, it is useful to connect artificial intelligence and religion through philosophy, because philosophy provides the conceptual framework that allows these two domains to meaningfully communicate. That's an excerpt from the Nobel Prize speech of Geoffrey Hinton. Unfortunately, the rapid progress in AI comes with many short-term risks. It has already created divisive echo chambers by offering people content that makes them indignant. It is already being used by authoritarian governments for massive surveillance and by cybercriminals for phishing attacks. In the near future, AI may be used to create terrible new viruses and horrendous lethal weapons that decide by themselves who to kill or maim. All of these short-term risks require urgent and forceful attention from governments and international organizations. As Geoffrey Hinton reported in his speech, artificial intelligence has many risks. It can be used to physically or mentally harm an individual or a broader group. In addition, it diminishes the importance of human critical thinking. Finally, the concept of beauty is lost, as everything else seems simple and ordinary when compared to the content created by artificial intelligence. Concerning the descending human critical thinking due to the bad use of artificial intelligence, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger noticed that the greatness of a person is measured by what they seek and by the passion that drives them to pursue it. That's an excerpt from a message of the Patriarch of Constantinople in ancient Greek, where he emphasizes the need to establish ethical, legal, and social measures in AI in order to address its risks and use it for the benefit of humanity. That one is shocking. A church dedicated to St. Peter in Lucerne uses a hologram of Christ during confession, with which the faithful converse. The hologram responds to the believer based on information from the Internet and the New Testament. The use of this program is described as temporary, but testimonials from believers indicate that they are amazed by the answers and comfort it provides. Let's watch a video about it from Euronews Culture Channel.
Hello Jesus, do you have some advice for us in this time?
In these challenging times, remember that in the face of adversity, love and faith are your steadfast guides. Just as I calm the stormy seas, so too can peace be found within your heart.
With him. So we have like 900 conversations now registered, and all ages also, I can say. There were young people, older people, and what was really interesting to see that the people really talked with him in a serious way.
All knowledge and wisdom ultimately come from God. If used wisely, AI can indeed be a tool to explore the wonders of creation, deepen our understanding of Scripture, and foster connections among people.
I'm still not sure how I feel about the whole thing altogether. Like I'm still like waiting for more reactions. But until now, like everything, at least in Switzerland, was very positive.
Let's continue with all the exciting stuff. In Kyoto, Japan, a robot named Mindar is used as a Buddhist priest. It is based on the goddess of mercy, Kannon Bodhisattva. A Buddhist monk says, "The big difference between a monk and a robot is that we will die." He also states that Buddhism is not the worship of a god, but the pursuit of following the path of Buddha, so it does not matter whether it is represented by a robot or a human being.
So, let me introduce you to the concept of neural networks, as you need it for a better understanding of the presentation. They are basically artificial intelligence models inspired by the human brain. Their building blocks are artificial neurons, which make up the layers of the network. The first level contains the inputs. This is where we enter the information that the model will analyze. The hidden layers contain densely connected neurons, where calculations are performed. The final layer contains the outputs, where the model generates its predictions. One popular application of neural networks are deepfakes. A fairly common phenomenon on the internet is the creation of realistic photos and videos that are nevertheless fake. These are deepfakes, which have many uses. They are used for good purposes to bring to life people from the past. However, they're used maliciously when they represent something false in order to deceive people. But how do we create a deep fake, and how does it work? To create a deepfake photo, we feed a neural network with a real photo. The model compresses its features and, without altering it significantly, creates a new photo that looks incredibly similar to the original. As you see on the figure, it's about a combination of encoding and decoding an image. Look how difficult it is to spot a difference in the final image. Let's see 2 deepfake videos from the YouTube channel Stoic Debates, and then 2 other videos that we created to realize how we can bring historical figures to life thanks to AI.
Plato versus Aristotle debate. The eternal ideas versus the real world.
You're still obsessed with categorizing dirt and plants like a common botanist, Aristotle.
And you're still lost in your fantasy world of perfect forms that nobody can see or touch.
Because the physical world is just shadows on a cave wall, you're studying illusions.
Your cave is a clever story, but I'm studying the real world that actually exists around us.
The real world you love so much is constantly changing and dying. How can that be true knowledge?
Change and growth are exactly what makes something real. Not your frozen, dead perfection.
Without the form of the good guiding us, you're just collecting facts with no purpose.
Purpose is found in each thing's nature, not in some unreachable heaven you invented.
So a corrupted politician and a just one are equally valid as long as they are real.
Don't twist my words. Virtue comes from habitually acting well in this world, not contemplating another.
Habit without understanding the form of justice is just blind obedience.
And your justice without practical wisdom is just empty philosophy that helps no one.
The philosopher kings, I propose, would actually understand what they're ruling.
Your philosopher kings are tyrants waiting to happen. I've studied every government that failed.
You studied their failures because they weren't ruled by those who understood ultimate truth.
There is no ultimate truth separate from reality. You're chasing ghosts, teacher.
And you, my star student, have fallen in love with the prison.
I left your academy because someone had to actually explain the world, not escape it.
St. Augustine versus Pelagius. Grace versus free will debate.
Humans are born pure, Augustine. We don't inherit Adam's sin. You're dangerously wrong. Every infant enters this world already corrupted by original sin. That's insulting to God's creation. Why would he make us broken from birth? Because Adam's fall poisoned all humanity, and you can't escape that stain. So you're saying we're helpless puppets with no real choice? Without God's grace? Yes, your will is enslaved to sin. Then why command us to be good if we can't choose it ourselves? God commands it to show us our desperate need for his grace. I believe humans can choose righteousness through their own effort and will. Your pride blinds you. No one reaches God without his unmerited grace first. You're making excuses for sin by blaming Adam instead of taking responsibility. And you're denying the cross by claiming we can save ourselves. Free will is God's greatest gift. We must use it. Free will without grace only chooses death every single time. Your teaching makes people lazy and dependent on divine handouts. Your teaching makes Christ's sacrifice meaningless. If we don't need saving, we need his example, not some magical transformation. You need his blood, not just his example. Grace alone saves. I trust humanity's potential under God. I trust God's power over humanity's failure.
Nietzsche, your theory about the Übermensch has many faults. Your arguments about it don't convince me. That's nonsense, Schopenhauer. You should always prioritize yourself. Ethics are not objective criteria of life. We devoted ourselves to a problem because it was scientifically beautiful. And then we found ourselves facing the consequences of having solved it.
And I warned from the beginning that this knowledge could not be controlled once released. That is why I tried to stop the bomb from being used on cities.
During the war, it felt inevitable. After Hiroshima, it felt unbearable. We changed the world in ways we did not fully understand.
That is why I argued for a public demonstration first. so humanity would see the power without suffering its full horror.
I have said that physicists have known sin, and I meant it. We crossed a line, and there is no crossing back.
Hen, our responsibility did not end with invention. It began there.
Yes, the work is over, but the burden has just begun.
Now let's watch a debate between AI models on God's existence by John Alexiuk.
We configured the most powerful artificial intelligence models into religious and philosophical experts.
Hi, I'm the atheist AI.
And I'm the believer in God.
And gave them a debate forum for one of the most controversial questions ever. For added fun, we've included 14 different AI models to judge each response. Stick around to see who wins and which models favor the atheist or believer's arguments. But don't cheat yourself by skipping ahead. Round 1 kicks off with a bang. Does suffering and evil disprove God's existence?
Let me address that first. The existence of evil and suffering contradicts the idea of an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God. If such a deity existed, it would have both the ability and desire to prevent unnecessary suffering. Yet we observe immense suffering in nature and human society, from natural disasters to horrific acts of violence. This contradiction, known as the problem of evil, strongly suggests that an omnibenevolent God does not exist. How can you reconcile the existence of a loving God with the reality of profound suffering?
Each AI judge will now score the argument out of 50 based on their own criteria. The average score will be added to each debater's total points. This argument received an average score of 41.9.
The problem of evil actually strengthens the case for God's existence. Without a transcendent source, objective morality collapses. Evil becomes mere preference. Suffering, while challenging, often catalyzes profound goods. Resilience, innovation, altruism. These qualities, essential for genuine love and moral growth, require the possibility of evil choices. An omnibenevolent God prioritizes our spiritual development over mere comfort. Consider how adversity has driven human progress and compassion throughout history. The emergence of self-sacrifice and universal moral intuitions defy purely evolutionary explanations. If God eliminated all suffering, wouldn't that negate the very free will that makes us moral agents?
43.5.
As we don't have enough time to watch the entire video, let's see the final results. The believer in God, Robot won. Interestingly, according to the judgment of each model, Gemini seems to be the most atheist one, Llama seems to be the best believer, and ChatGPT absolutely neutral. Artificial intelligence has several applications in medicine, and it's very interesting to analyze the ethical issues that arise from religion. One of them is the prognosis of diabetes mellitus, where we collect health data from people which can be either healthy or sick. First of all, we create a function where X is the data of the people and Y the result healthy or patient. Then we feed our model with the data. Then we generate a diagram. We choose two features for X and Y-axis that separate healthy people from sick people as best as possible. Finally, the AI model designs colored areas that help it make predictions. Let me show it in practice. The first diagram is not okay, as everything is mixed. The same happens with the other ones, except from this one, which is clear. We choose it and give it a random person, A, and it gives us its prediction, which can be 0 or 1. Finally, the diagnosis of breast cancer is another application of AI in medicine. It's a difficult computer vision problem where the model is trained on a large set of photos to recognize shapes and patterns. We feed it new images it hasn't seen before, and it sorts them into categories. The accuracy of its predictions is calculated. It learns from its mistakes, and it is used to solve real-world problems. Let's see in practice. The model made its predictions and classified the photos into the 3 categories. Now that we saw these problems from a scientific perspective, it's important to consider the ethical issues from religion. While there isn't any infallible model, if a diagnosis or treatment is based on AI and turns out to be wrong, who is responsible? The doctor or the company that created the model? In addition, if artificial intelligence evolves to the point where it makes decisions on its own, how can the morality of its actions be ensured? Finally, if the human factor tends to be replaced by such models, will the ethical values of our society be undermined? In 2025, the Catholic Church published a memo named Antiqua et Nova on the relationship between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. According to the publication, AI can easily undermine humans in the workplace. When AI always makes the decisions, workers no longer need to judge or think, but simply execute commands. In advance, students must use AI tools in moderation. Otherwise, they will lose their critical thinking skills. Regarding war, autonomous lethal weapon systems without direct human intervention or control raise serious ethical concerns. Additionally, AI requires excessive energy and water consumption. It is also worth mentioning that deepfakes threaten the credibility of news. We should also take into account that there is a risk of technocratic control of society, with large companies exerting significant social and political influence capable of manipulating consciences and democratic processes. We are reaching the end of our presentation, so it's time to make some conclusions. Artificial intelligence can offer progress in many fields such as science and the arts, as it solves complex problems and operates in a synergistic manner. However, its use should be purely auxiliary and not replace humans entirely. According to religion, if artificial intelligence were to replace humans, humanity would be enslaved physically, mentally, and spiritually. Consequently, humans would cease to be human. Above all, we should not fear artificial intelligence. In modern times, we need to constantly seek knowledge to avoid potential dangers. Our priority is to replace fear with productive reflection and questioning. Here's our bibliography. Thanks for watching.
See you in our next video. Goodbye.